and Pip will be giving us an insight into the all-age autism commissioning officer role and sort of update. So our first item on the agenda is the public participation session, an opportunity for members of the public to make representations to the Town Council on matters on the agenda or public interest. We have two members of the public present. Martin, if you would like to speak, just pop your speaker on there. That's it. Awesome. It worked.
I was going to do that.
And if I could just ask you to introduce yourself.
Certainly.
For the record, and 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Good evening, councillors. For those who don't know me, my name's Martin Jones. I am currently the chairman of Oswestry Rural Parish Council. And firstly, on behalf of said council, can I congratulate you on your recent, the award that you've received for the best council. Well done, and we hope that you are rightly proud of this award. Then moving forward, as Aaron will no doubt update you all, the Oswestry Area Committee met at the beginning of the month. And one area that came up was cross-boundary communications. It was said that Oswestry takes action without consideration for its neighbours, but I did tell my fellow councillors there that nothing prevents them from attending these meetings, as we are doing. And I encourage them to do so. This is something I've long advocated for, because without being here and speaking, or just listening to the council, how can we know what is good or bad for the surrounding parishes? Because we need Oswestry to thrive. Equally, you councillors here this evening should try and visit other local area meetings, because it's good for the community support and better for joined up thinking, so that everyone's engaged. And it's in this spirit that I'm here this evening. As you're aware, there's a large dairy farm at Trefarclid, Codigo on the Oswestry-Trefonin Road. They currently have another planning application in before planning, in their typical piecemeal approach, which aims to double the current capacity of the farm. Oswestry Rural has engaged a legal team to formally object to this application, and we shall ratify this on Friday evening. This is expensive. However, we're not asking you for money. We are just asking for support. You may recall, as I've said to you, that the traffic management utilises both Upper and Lower Brook Street for the agricultural movement. Traversing the pinch point of Upper Brook Street poses risks outside the school and housing. Okay. This section actually falls into Oswestry town, and it's not rural. But you have not been consulted about it. We believe you should be informed, if not directly consulted on it. We request that you object to this application on the grounds of traffic, pollution and environmental concerns. Traffic is obviously the size and volume of vehicles. Pollution, just pop up to Chain Lane and smell it for yourselves. It is disgusting. The size of the lagoons and the risk posed by them, along with noise and excessive light pollution at night. The date for comments on this application expires today, but as our legal team has informed us, this is a soft stop. And consideration should still be given to submissions after this date by the planning department. Therefore, we ask that you add this to next week's planning meeting, and would like you, hopefully, to object also. But at the very least, consider the impact that this application will have on your constituents and the very real risks posed by this application in light of the traffic that would be expected to go through that. The application is 24015/EIA, and it's Trefarclid Farm, Oswestry. Aaron has a copy with all the relevant details, but I urge you please to look at it and consider the effects it will have on you. And this again is why we're asking for joined up communication. Thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry I won't be able to stay later this evening, but I do appreciate your attention on this.
Thank you. Good?
Yes.
Fine. Okay. We'll move on to item number 2 then. Apologies for absence. There are a number.
So 7 apologies for absence if my sums work out correct. So Councillor Moore, personal. Councillor Johnson, work. Councillor Goodlad, personal. Councillor Borman, personal. Both poorly. Councillor Roberts, work. Councillor Brindley, work. Councillor McKinney, personal.
Okay. Councillors, are we happy to note those apologies? All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Okay. We'll move on to 2B. Thank you both. Take care. Disclosure of councillors' interests of any matters in relation to the Code of Conduct. And I will start myself off by saying I am both Oswestry Town Councillor and Shropshire Councillor, and I have received dispensation to discuss and be in the room with any matters related to Shropshire Council services until May 2026. I think that's probably about it. Round to the left.
So I am portfolio holder for Housing Leisure for Shropshire Council and a member of Shropshire Council. I've been granted a dispensation for any items regarding transfer of services. However, I will be leaving for item 10A as it is directly involved financial matters of my portfolio.
I too am going to Shropshire County Councillor, and I've been granted a dispensation to take part in discussions and vote on any Shropshire Council related services related items.
Can I say ditto? No. I'm going to declare an interest as a Shropshire councillor. I realise that the item 14 isn't directly linked, I think, to a discussion and a vote based on the transfer of services, but I'd rather actually declare that I am a Shropshire councillor and I do have dispensation to participate in discussions and vote should it arise.
Thank you. Mr. Froggatt.
As temporary chair of the Allotment Association, I would have to leave the room for 10C.
Thank you very much. Could be good at this. Next.
Yeah, I'm a Shropshire councillor, got dispensation to talk about issues on Shropshire devolved services, but I don't actually think there's any on the agenda, but for completeness.
Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Fiona. It's a decision for yourself, Fiona.
So the question is it on, for you to decide, is it on your other registrable interests form, which I don't know. There's a question whether it should be, but I'll leave that one. Probably not for discussion. You could argue there's a benefit if you wanted to argue.
Oh, are you declaring something?
Yes.
Okay. So on item 10D, just before we get to that, if you want to leave the room, so it's your decision entirely. Okay.
Well, it is your decision, but having declared it, you have to. So you can't declare it and then stay. So just a record, it's just important learning. If you're a member of a club, which I think you said that you are, then you have another registrable interest and you should not partake in any decision unless granted a dispensation, which you haven't got. So, yeah.
Okay. Dave.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Likewise, a member of Shropshire Council, and I've got dispensation on the transfer of services, should it arise. I'm not going to say the planning thing, but I was tempted after what we've just had from. But yeah, okay.
Thank you. Anything? No? Fabulous. Okay. We then move very swiftly on to item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Jonathan.
Madam Mayor, I move we adopt.
I'm happy to second that. All those in favour, councillors? Brilliant. Unanimous. Perfect. The most interesting part of the evening so far, Pip.
Well, I hope so.
would you like to say to seat? And if you can just press, that's it. That's the one.
Okay,
As well.
right. I hope this is the most interesting part of your evening. Good evening, everyone. Real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. So, I'm Pip Long. I'm the Commissioning Officer for Autism at Shropshire Council, and my primary role over the last couple of years has been updating Shropshire's autism strategy. So I'm here this evening to give you a brief, literally whistle-stop tour through some of that work and a couple of other sort of community-based activities that I've been involved in that I think should be aware about and certainly promoting through Oswestry Town Council. So I'm having to look to Aaron to move on. So the first thing to say is obviously autism is not a physical disability, it is a neurological disability. So we're not expecting anyone to recognise somebody who's autistic, and I think that's absolutely the first thing to say. Move on, please. So I'm just going to double check that everybody does know what autism is. Does anyone want me to recap? But I think it's important just to recognise that, but not only do we have it is a developmental disability, it is recognised as a protected characteristic in UK law, and as such there are protections that are offered against discrimination, and autistic people are entitled to support through education, work or access to services. And I think that's absolutely crucial that everybody recognises and understands that. Thank you. So for context, and I think it's really, really important that people understand this, we have huge waiting lists in Shropshire. We have 1,548 adults awaiting assessment, and those people will be waiting in excess of 4 years for assessment. We have 2,018 children awaiting autism assessments at the moment, and on average, as you can see, they'll wait between 9 months and now 3 years. It was 2, so some of the longest waits are up to 3 years. And importantly, for sort of wider national context, is that 4% of our population is now considered to be autistic, and up to 15% neurodivergent. So that obviously includes ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and all the other neurodivergent conditions. And I think that, for me, when I'm talking to council colleagues and stakeholders who've been involved in the autism strategy, to me is absolutely our wake-up call, that this is no longer, there's possibly one person in a classroom or in a workplace that may be autistic. This is really, really significant numbers. So we all have to wake up to our responsibility in making sure that we are recognising the needs of autistic people, that autistic people are just an autistic person. They have needs the same as everybody else has different needs, and it's about us being accepting, reducing and removing stigma, and making sure that actually all of our workplaces, schools, social clubs, wherever it is that we're going, actually recognise the reasonable adjustments and just kindness to other people who may have different needs. So as part of the autism strategy, I particularly like this quote, which is "Great minds think differently." And I think it's really important that we start using neuro-affirming language as part of any communication that involves autism or neurodivergence. And as you can see, I love the quote, "There are numerous reasons to better understand autistic people, the most important being to make the world a kinder, more inclusive place for everybody." Again, fundamentally important. So one of the main reasons I updated the strategy, it was well out of date. It was last updated as an adults-only strategy in 2016. It wasn't aligned to National Autism Strategy, which was updated in 2021, and recognised that actually we can't pigeonhole autism into children's or adult services. It's about recognising a lifelong condition where a joined-up approach is undertaken. So the autism strategy was updated through a significant amount of stakeholder engagement, lived experience, co-production, all the way through. And probably no one would be surprised about the amount of interest in this area. It's obviously incredibly topical, sometimes not for the right reasons, when we've got talks of cures and paracetamol and goodness knows what else being branded about. But I think the important thing is that as a new document, a new strategy, it was approved at Cabinet in December. So 4 key items here in terms of the recommendations, that the strategy was approved in full, that they endorse the development of a delivery plan, which is what I'm working on at the minute, because it's all very well writing these things down and developing and co-producing them, but actually it's the doing that's important. It's actually seeing what's going to happen. So I'm in the process of a handover to operational leads to make sure we're actually really embedding those actions. I have to report back to scrutiny in December of this year. Again, really important that there's clear accountability. And whilst it's not my job to do all of the delivery, you know, ultimately we need the drivers to make sure that these things are actually happening. And I think importantly, the 4th recommendation, which again was approved, was for Shropshire Council to be a neuro-inclusive employer. And that in itself is massive. So as you can imagine, there's a huge amount of work that's going to have to be undertaken to actually put that into practice. And I think that's obviously where some of the influence will come into our local town councils. So we took a really holistic and collaborative approach. As I said, we involved quite a lot of over 120 stakeholders, in fact, in the work. We ran a number of engagement events and really focused on what people felt were the really important areas, and they fell into these 5 key areas. And that was broadly how the work was undertaken, because clearly we've got health and assessment, where we need to make sure we've got the right professionals around the table to actually talk about our assessment pathways, the way in which people actually understand diagnosis. It is not the golden ticket. It is about that early intervention and prevention and recognising needs and offering needs-led support. And I think that's important for our communities to understand as well. We spent a lot of time looking at education, what's happening in our schools. There's some really fantastic stuff happening in our schools to support our teaching staff, change our school environments to make sure that actually they are inclusive for autistic and neurodivergent children, and make sure those children actually are supported in having a positive experience at school. Because again, as this diagram will sort of demonstrate, if your children are not having a positive experience in school, then there's social isolation, there's underachievement, there's mental health issues, there's often bullying, there's stigma, and all that raft of negativity that surrounds that child's opportunity to be educated like everybody else, is damaged. And that damage is lifelong in many, many cases. And I think that then feeds into a lack of opportunity to be employed, to find sustainable employment. That then has a knock-on effect on our housing and social care obligations. Certainly within Shropshire Council, the costs, as you probably know, are phenomenal. So, that is an absolute danger area. Plus then the knock-on effect on our criminal justice system because of the vulnerabilities. Within HMP Stoke Heath, about 50% of our prison are believed to be neurodivergent. So that costs us millions every year. And my argument would be that actually a lot of those people are there because they've been failed by the system. So why does it matter locally? It matters because autistic people are, in our communities and they attend our schools. Given the prevalence, we probably estimate that we've got about 13,000 autistic people across our communities. So that is significant, and a large proportion of those will be undiagnosed. Only 30% of autistic people are employed. Again, a really staggeringly low number, and I think, again, an area of huge amount of focus and work is needed to turn that tide, and that comes from better support within our schools, more understanding employers, and that offer and access to reasonable adjustments and in the workplace. Again, fundamental requirements that actually aren't just about autism or neurodivergence. It's about us being accepting and recognising that actually everybody has something to contribute to the workplace, and we need to make sure that those people are being supported like anybody else. Autism is a community issue. You know, it is not just a council or an NHS issue. One thing I have learned is there's a lot of people involved in this whole systemic and cultural change that needs to happen, but absolutely we all need to be getting on board with our contribution and the impact that we can make. Obviously local environments can include or exclude, you know, small practical factors, noise, lighting, signage, crowding, making sure that people feel that spaces, community spaces are accessible. And again, the Town Council can help influence some of that change. And ultimately, as I just said, you know, the strategy represents cultural and systemic shift across Shropshire. It is a really big piece of work. So key messages are act earlier, not later. It is about really recognising that early intervention and prevention, and also making sure that young people understand their autism. There's a lot of talk, I think, about how we're supporting professionals, how parents need to have help and advice. All of those things are perfectly valid, but actually in the centre of it is an autistic child or an autistic young person or an autistic adult that actually also need to understand how their presentations are affecting them. So prioritise and invest in prevention. Again, you can imagine that's quite a difficult thing to get across. We're talking a lot about prevention, but we've actually got to start doing it. That's, you know, our investment in that is actually going to reap dividends later on. Fund innovative activities. I'll talk in a moment briefly about radio clubs and the accessibility and capturing the voice of children and young people and making sure that all children have access to lots of different activities. Make sure that we mandate autism training, and by training I mean competence and confidence in really understanding what autism means, and that application within a workplace, community, wherever it is not about a tick box exercise that people say, oh yes, I've done that course, now I know everything I need to know. And making sure that all the services are joined up, and I think again that's a really significant area that I've noticed within the work that I've been doing. So I'm not going to go through the priority areas, but I'm sure these slides will be shared. Can I just stop at this one? So there are details based on those segments of what the issues are and what needs to change. So for reference, you might want to have a look at those in a bit. I've sort of chosen not to go through them because of time, but I think what is interesting here is for me to share is that all of the referrals that we have across Shropshire, I know where those referrals are. So working with our assessment providers, I can map all of the adult and all of the children and young people referrals back to the GP. So we're not talking about individuals' addresses, we're talking about GP locations. And I can see where we've got hotspots across the county. And what's really important with that is that we can really look at where we've got support services, where we've got gaps. You can see we've got hotspots in Ellesmere, Market Drayton and Shrewsbury, but we've also got some really significant numbers, and I know it might be a bit difficult to see, but in Oswestry, every one of our GP surgeries have got up to 89 adult referrals. So I'm not actually mapping the children's on here, but in terms of looking at our services, and when we're looking at commissioning new support services, it's really useful to be able to make sure that we're able to direct the right support in the right place across the county. So I think that's about working smarter with the money that we do have to be able to provide that support. Driver's gone. there a couple on? Okay. So that's a bit of an overview in terms of the strategy. It is, just to quickly sort of sum up, it is a 5-year plan. It covers all of those strategic aims across all of those 5 segments I mentioned earlier. It is enormous, but we have got, you know, senior leadership involvement, commitment to actually start driving those changes. So it's certainly my commitment to make sure that actually we do start doing some of the doing to really drive the changes. So a couple of the other initiatives I just wanted to mention. School radio clubs are something that I've been involved in, not particularly because of the autism, but because I listen a lot throughout the council to, we must capture the voice of children and young people as we design and develop our services. And I was asked to go and do a podcast at community radio station, Intune Radio, in the Darwin Centre on autism. And when I was there, I was talking about the opportunities for the radio station to be in schools. So we managed to get some funding through Shropshire Music Service, some funding from Virtual School through their participation fund. And we have 14, we've funded 14 places for 14 schools to take part in a radio club. So the idea is that the children can come, they all have a different task, they set up a club, they record a 30-minute piece that is submitted back to the radio station every month, and that is aired on a Saturday morning show. So the fantastic thing about that is that it's fully inclusive, that children who might never have had the opportunity to have a go recording do. It makes them think about employment opportunities. It makes them think about key and topical issues. So there are subject areas like mental health, children's sexuality, you know, autism and neurodivergence, all expected to come up through the radio club opportunities. So I believe that the school in Western Rhin, and it's gone for the moment, has applied and is interested, and I believe approached the town council for a small pocket of money as a contribution towards. Okay. Okay, but I believe some funding has been requested. But again, the opportunity for employers to get involved in funding and supporting a radio club in their local school is something that I think is really important, and a great opportunity for that wider connectivity. I guess my biggest plea is that children and young people in our schools and children having opportunities like this, these are the children who are our future employers. So the more we can encourage that participation, openness, inclusivity, the better for everybody. So there's a short video as well, which is definitely worth a watch. Not now, but if anyone would like to watch it, and a brief testimonial. But the feedback from the school has just been, Wilfred Owen School was the first school to host the radio club, and just had the most amazing positive reaction. And just lastly, I wanted to mention about Kids. Kids is the commission service for children and young people, and this service is specifically to support parent carers and families who may have an autistic child up to the age of 19. So they are delivering across the county in a hybrid way, as requested by parents, but it's about providing, you know, online peer support groups, training opportunities, learning about particular aspects, sleep issues, sensory issues, emotional-based school avoidance. They're all experienced. Generally, most of them have an autistic or neurodivergent child, so they completely understand. But I think, again, the number of parents that I speak to who say, I've never heard of Kids, is really, really disappointing. So this needs to be enforced through our communities, through our social media, website, whatever newsletter opportunities we have, to make sure that, you know, all of our families in our community know that there is help available and they're not on their own. And I think that's really, really important. With adults, we don't have an adult support offer at all in Shropshire, but we've recently managed to secure some funding, so I'm in the process of commissioning a contract to provide that adult support. Amazingly, it's just never been there. So there's a huge amount of work to do. I hope that, I haven't even been looking at my watch, so I hope that gives you a little bit of a flavour of the work that's been going on. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to take them, or I'm certainly happy to follow up at another time.
Okay, just as an addition to what you were talking about, we have a group in Oswestry from the Oswestry Senior Citizens Club that we've given them
Euro
into
Friends, yes.
Yeah, and it's really good and positive to support that. And we're also advertising at the moment for a youth development worker, and actually a lot of the strategic stuff around some of the things that we can put in place or ensure we put in place would definitely be on their agenda from our own.
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition, with as part of the Llwyd Mansion project, we have commissioned an accessibility review to make sure that the interpretation, the layout of the building, it meets the needs of our wider community as well. And we're working with the Derwent College to support that piece of work. But if councillors haven't got a question, I've probably got one, if that's okay. Is what one thing we would like to do more. I think we've discussed as part of our events programme how we can make our events more friendly and accessible to people, but perhaps struggle to find advice and guidance and training. So any opportunities for that would be very welcome, and really would like to put on some training for colleagues and perhaps for the council as a whole. If you could drop me some links of good trainers, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that we're really looking at the training offer within Shropshire Council, because again, you know, there are lots of different sources, but it needs to be consistent, and as I said, it needs to be applied. So we find that we've got some of our teams, for example, in our housing, who might be supporting people with drugs and alcohol issues. You know, they need to have specific training about professional curiosity, making sure that actually they do understand some of those presentations. So, you know, across the board, our social workers, wherever people are going, and as I say, you know, ticking the box and saying that you've done the training is not good enough. You know, it has to be applied. So yeah, I'll share some links with you. Duncan.
Certainly support the idea of training, because I think from the council's point of view, it's sometimes difficult to assess what can be done, and sometimes you put up things like signage, which I wouldn't have thought about, to be perfectly blunt. So my question is there any framework which has been designed for sort of councils to help them in thinking about the issues they need to consider when dealing with both autism and neurodivergence? Because I don't think we get there ourselves, because we're not living in that space enough to understand what the barriers might be.
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is there's no template within Shropshire at the moment for what that might look like, but there would be national examples of good practice. So I'd be happy to find those and share. And I mean, one of the most amazing councils I know as a city is Greater Manchester, who've really moved heaven and earth with a neuro-inclusive and be inclusive initiative across the council, and that has really become embedded and embraced by employers, communities. So I think there'll probably be some really good examples in there, just as an example. I mean, a lot of the things are simple things, you know, around communication. They're not necessarily costly.
I will come to you in a second, Jonathan, but I guess my thought about what you just said, Duncan, is that actually we can invite people to give us suggestions, an open consultation over a long period of going, what would help you in accessing our services as council? So whether you have lived experience, whether you don't, but, you know, Jonathan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got 3 questions, if that's okay.
Oh, of course.
They're firstly tailored to children with autism in the education. So your scheme to work with schools to implement your strategy, does that apply only to LEA schools, or would that apply to academy schools that work with Shropshire Council as well? With regards to adults with autism, you mentioned about wanting to become neurodivergence friendly. would that incorporate the steps that the council would have already taken to become 2-tick accredited, especially with regards to employment? And number 3, you've earlier on in the slides you mentioned you've broken it down into 5 areas: employment, education, etc. But there's a 6th one that wasn't mentioned: active travel, transport, and navigating yourself around this very diverse county. And that can apply to both children and adults with autism.
Yeah, well,
So whether that's worth considering as well.
thank you. Right, I've got to try and remember all of your questions now.
I can email you as well if you like.
Yeah, you might you might need to. So in terms of the work of the school within the schools, so we've as part of the SEND programme, I believe there was a poor Ofsted report for Shropshire a couple of years ago. On the back of that, we piloted when I say we, Shropshire Council piloted neurodiversity practitioners working in schools. So they were employed specifically to work systemically and culturally within the school, working with the teaching staff and training, looking at the school environment, from sensory issues, organisational issues, and the children themselves, to basically say, as you said, what is it about the school environment that needs to change? And that's something that needs to be rolled out and mandated across all of our schools. But it's open to all of the 151 schools in Shropshire, including secondary. So I think that does include all of the academy schools, which is really positive. What was your second question about the 2 ticks?
With regards to the steps taken to become neurodivergence friendly, would that incorporate the 2-tick accreditation scheme around employing people with disabilities, and especially within the council as well, and through your educational providers as you help them into the world of work and that?
Thank you. The strategy was only approved in December, and we're just starting the work through a combination of sort of senior leadership and HR departments to really make sure that we are being neuro-inclusive. So what that looks like, I'm not sure. I think we've got a long way to go in changing the internal sort of working systems. We obviously know that I have a lot of neurodivergent colleagues. I know that a lot of them won't disclose that they're neurodivergent because for fear of stigma. There's a lot of differences in the way that people are supported, again, based on knowledge of their particular line manager. But yeah, I'd be really happy to have another chat with you about that as that progresses, because I think that would be really helpful. And the last question was about autistic adults, wasn't it?
About active travel and transport, and steps that the transport sector of Shropshire Council can take to make navigating around Shropshire easier for people who might need a little more help.
Yeah, I think that, again, that is a really, really good point, and it's not necessarily been missed, because I think it comes under the whole sort of accessibility of our services, in the same way as sort of communication. Generally, we know there's some significant changes that need to happen to our communication as well. So when we're looking at improving our services, we need to have those considerations, and I think it's certainly a big consideration in terms of the support for children, young people and their families, and for adults in terms of what can be accessed, which again comes back to what are the travel restrictions, what's available in my community, not in Shrewsbury, but what can I actually reach where I live. So I think all of those things will definitely be flushed out. Thanks for your questions.
I'll circulate the slides to councillors, so everybody will have access.
Brilliant. Thank you, Pip.
Very welcome.
That was really informative, and a copy of the slides would be really useful. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thanks for
You're
inviting
very welcome
me.
to stay, but you're also very welcome to go and escape and get some
Yeah,
tea.
I might escape.
You've got a job to do, haven't we? We've been given you a job quickly, which is...
Oh yes, sorry. Yes, go. Yeah, before I escape.
So if we move on to the next item then, if that's okay.
That's absolutely fine. So we move, therefore, on to item number 5, which is the election of Mayor-elect and Deputy Mayor-elect.
Yeah.
So we are here to formally nominate the Mayor-elect and the Deputy Mayor-elect for 2026-27 in accordance with Standing Orders 26 of the Council. I'm not going to read the whole standing orders out.
So,
Are there any nominations for the role of Mayor-elect? James.
I wish to nominate Councillor Jonathan Upton as Mayor-elect for the next year, please.
Do I have a seconder?
I wish the second.
Excellent choice. Councillors, unless you've got any further nominations this evening, okay, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very, very much.
moving on to Deputy Mayor.
Absolutely. Am I doing the Deputy Mayor as well?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, we then move on to the election of Deputy Mayor for 26-27. Richard.
I'd like to nominate Councillor James Owen.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Unless there are any other nominations for the role of Deputy Mayor-elect. Nobody jumping up? No? Okay. All those in favour, please, councillors. Unanimous. Thank you very much. We therefore need to move on to picking names out of the hat for a seniority list, because there are a number of you in the room that all turned up at the same time. The sorting hat.
I was about to say that. Wasn't sure if it was
So,
appropriate.
It's late.
a bit of decorum, please, councillors.
Says the man holding a pirate hat.
Yeah, these are all the names are in here. All we're going to ask is for Pip to draw them out, read them out. These will form the seniority list, and there we go. So there we go. So if you can take
No
them out.
pressure.
Drum roll.
No pressure. Don't need my glasses on.
So if you take them out and
So
pass
this is
them
the
on.
person that will be next after James.
Councillor Mark Roberts,
We'll go for the next one.
Councillor Elmet,
Ooh, excellent.
Councillor Walker.
Quickly,
And
Guy.
yes, please. Councillor Goodlad. Councillor Johnson. Councillor Foreman. Checking it out. Councillor McKinney. Councillor Wilson. Councillor Brindley. Councillor Froggatt. Councillor Wendy Owen. No, you're right. You're right, that's my fault. We'll sort that out after.
Okay, so it'll be Brindley, Wendy Owen.
And Councillor Simmons. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Am I dismissed?
Yeah,
now?
thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Take care, Pip. Thank you.
Actually, my laptop might be dissolved.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Excellent. So, we've done Mayor-elect, Deputy Mayor-elect, seniority list. Fabulous. We then move on to item number 6, subcommittee working group. We have got A, B, C and D. Minutes attached. Thoughts, councillors?
So quickly, if I take them through to help you with the recommendation. So there's no specific recommendations in Transport Transformation Working Group.
There was just an inaccuracy that Councillor Roberts wasn't present in that meeting and Councillor Goodlad was, so that needs correcting on those minutes.
Thank you. Okay. With that in mind, are you happy to? With that in mind, are you happy to move them?
Happy? I'm happy to move from the chair unless there are any other thoughts around the transformation working group. I'm happy to note the changes and the minutes seconded. All those in favour, councillors? Thank you. Audit, procurement and performance panel.
So a few recommendations from Madam Mayor, some recommendations around training. So supporting, you'll notice through the fortnightly updates, I'm encouraging you to do code of conduct training. So if you haven't done code of conduct training, you really should. I can't insist on it, but there is access to training. There's a date available. Council pay for it. So please have a look for that. There's a mention of a session for members in there, a note regarding standing orders, and I do, as I say, the note regarding standing orders, I do need to bring forward a review at some point. I think it's a question of when that happens and whether it's a priority at this moment.
Councillors, any thoughts on those minutes and those recommendations?
So you happy to move?
Are you happy to move all the recommendations? You're happy to move? Fiona? You happy to second? Yep, okay then. Councillors, all those in favour?
I would add it was a super meeting and really productive, and reviewing the corporate governance checklist was really helpful. So thank you to councillors on that group. It was really helpful.
Yeah, agreed. Was it constructive discussion? The centre steering group, that was you and I.
Yeah, so as requested, the Mayor and I meet with both Osnosh and with TNS Football Foundation Trust to discuss matters around the centre. I think everybody's pleased to note that the roof has now been completed. It's no longer leaking, although we've got fingers crossed on that one, Henry, a little bit, haven't we? But the work has completed, and it now enables TNS to make the maximum of that building, so all the rooms are now usable in some shape, form or another. So yeah, I think there's no recommendations, just for noting.
There was no recommendation. I think it's just worth noting though that there is a lot of value in having that high level coming together and discussing with Osnosh, with TNS, with us, as a way of sorting issues out quickly, building relationships, and supporting people. So that, yeah, I think there's definitely value in that continuing thereon. Okay, so are we happy to note that report? Councillors, all those in favour? Fabulous, thank you. HR panel and disciplinary committee.
So again, a very busy agenda for the councils. I think there's a number of operational issues in there for us to deal with, and getting the guidance from members is extremely useful. So the need with us growing the staff base as we are to invest in ensuring our governance procedures are appropriate, and ensuring our HR system is fit for purpose. So, you know, everything's recorded on a system. Members will note from my updates that we have secured additional HR support to help us manage through the next few months as we grow. There are a couple of policy reviews on there which are either on the agenda tonight or will be in the future. And you'll also note there's an update on recruitment. So we are in the process of recruiting the youth development worker. That advert is out. There's been quite a bit of interest, which is good. And the next one to go out, which will probably go out next week, will be the Open Spaces Manager. And again, it was useful to get the feedback from the committee on that one. So some positive work in their members.
And we have the CCTV coordinator due to start imminently.
Week on Monday.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think there is definite value in interjecting some additional HR support at the moment, because we are recruiting quite well and we are looking at our policies and procedures. So, and looking to the future, there's definitely benefit in releasing some of your time and of other people's time as well. So, yeah. So we are just being asked to note the report, and any further discussions on that report? All those in favour, councillors? Thank you. Right, we move on to item 7, schedule of meetings. I think they kind of carry on the same pattern as we have done previously.
We present them to you again for formal approval in May. It is a draft schedule, follows the usual pattern, but you know, and important to recognise that with the working groups, so as we stick with, it really is for the working groups to determine how often they meet and when they meet. So So around the working groups, that is just a draft. It is very much in your gift to adapt to suit the members of those groups. So yeah, fairly straightforward item as I see it.
Okay. So we are being asked, councillors, to consider and approve the draft schedule. I'm going to move that we do approve the draft schedule at this point in time. There is some movement if necessary, but at this point in time, I'm going to say that we approve them. Do I have a seconder? Enthusiasm is immense. Thank you very much, Ruth. All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, have we had any questions in accordance with standing orders?
No questions.
Awesome. Moving on to item number 9, update from local Shropshire councillors Duncan Kerr, James Owen, Mark Owen and Wendy Owen.
If I don't damage the microphone while doing it. I think a big highlight for a lot of residents will be that the budget did increase for council tax of 8.99% at Shropshire Council as an additional 4% on the usual referendum limit. Effectively, despite it will be difficult for some members, there is help available, both if you contact members to who can show you through that, or access the website online. And there's several things. For example, a lot of people on 10 months are not aware that you can actually divide your payments across 12 months, which can reduce your monthly payments and help you a lot. So just making sure that people who are struggling, make sure that you do use some of the facilities available that can try and help you month on month. And there is also, if you contact the council tax team, there is other ways that they can try and impact you and try and get you support and make sure that you're on the benefits, etc., that you need to be. There was another thing that was Shropshire Council related, but I have forgotten, so I'll leave it to the other two.
Duncan.
Just one thing at Cabinet.
Oh, Duncan, I think it's gone off again.
To the proposed changes to the National Planning Policy Framework. And there are a few incidental changes there for neighbourhood plans, but neighbourhood plans are still part of it. Just wanted to reassure the council that neighbourhood plans are still part of that. I think the changes are pretty small scale, but there are bigger issues concerning the National Planning Policy Framework. And I thought there was a good discussion at Cabinet this morning about that, and we'll see whether it gets listened to by Cabinet.
I think.
I was just going to say that what's been said currently, or just now, has pretty much covered it for the whole of Oswestry in terms of what Councillor James Owen said. So I've got nothing more to add to that.
Okay. Well, we're not asked to vote on that.
Could I raise an issue? Obviously, I'm not a councillor, but members will be aware that manager at the library, Siobhan, and I've forgotten her surname off the top of my head. Do you want to
Yeah,
raise
of course.
So, like Siobhan has been the manager for a number of years now and has been in the library service for, I believe, 19. She's now moving on as she has a much better job in Cheshire West as the library manager for the whole county. So I do want to just thank her for how well that she does do for Oswestry and the wider area, because it's quite a hub one in Oswestry, and she also manages Gabowen in the same role. So it's a matter of, I think we should all thank Siobhan for the work that she has done over the previous years and wish her well on the future. And the other thing was, the library will be closing for 2 weeks in a couple of weeks to have renovations in the front entrance. So for around 2 weeks it won't be accessible, but hopefully there'll be something in place to try and make sure some of the services might be able to be kept.
So with that in mind, just as James given you the update, there is an offer of support from the Town Council, fairly limited. It's on a quid pro quo, as long as I can go and borrow books during that 2 weeks, James. But yeah, so just if we can help, we will. So there's with the support members.
Jonathan.
Just a question. When Whitchurch Library had to close because of the building a couple of years ago, they had to install a drop-off point for anyone whose books are due to be returned. Even if you can't provide a service, will measures be in place so that people don't get penalised for not being able to return them, or even if it's taken up to Gabowen or somewhere?
So there will be services in place to make sure that you're not going to get fined for overdue books that are in that 2-week period.
Fabulous. Okay. I think we have nothing to action from that one then. So we will therefore move on to item 10 and item 10A, at which point Councillor James Owen has left the room, and we move to discuss Shropshire Council archive services.
So it's not really an item for discussion, it's an item for noting. We rely on Shropshire Council's archives service to support us with our archive work and provide a resource. Every year I come and tell you how much it's going to cost. Happens to come in after the budget, and you'll see that we have enough money in the budget for it. Kerry, the archivist, is supporting the Clwyd Mansion project in particular. We are needing to focus more on leases and on records management, but yeah, I think I'd be grateful if members can support this.
Mark.
Yeah, I'm happy to support it, certainly. I raised an eyebrow and had to think hard to make sure that I understood that the 13,000 was without VAT, because council budgets don't have VAT. And it was when I realised that, I then could then say, oh yeah, it's within budget. But that's fine.
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to support. I'm fully aware that Clwyd Mansion and kind of volunteers have started to use the archives as well, and I think having that extra service and that support and somebody local that knows Oswestry is really valid. And when I became a councillor, I had the option to go down into the archives underneath here and have a look around, and they've got some very interesting items down there, which is really worth it. So if you ever get an opportunity to go down and have a look, it's fascinating, so do so. But I would absolutely support this. So
Should we go to the vote?
yeah, absolutely. Are you happy to? Yeah, I'm happy to second. So all those in favour, councillors, thank you very much. Okay, is James there? Just back in. Perfect. Okay, councillors, we move on to NABMA, the National Association of British Market Administration.
So it's interesting, having been challenged last week about how the council makes its money and relying too much on precept and car parking charges, just to highlight that the council does generate revenue through some quite creative ways, including having a service level agreement with a national organisation, and indeed it was recognised as part of your achievement at NALC as being nominated and selected as Council of the Year. Was the actual final point that they made, is that you deliver a service level agreement for a national organisation. Don't there's any others in the country that do that. So when we brought this to you before, you agreed in principle. This is the detail. I know there's some typos. It was produced by NABMA. What I would say is that the SLA is a little bit less onerous than in previous years. So there's some changes to it. I would like it to be sharper, I'll be honest, and I'll carry on working with the organisation to do that. But yeah, I'd be grateful if you could approve that, because it does run out on the 31st of March.
Councillors, have you got any comments, anything whatsoever about the SLA? Okay, well, we're being asked to consider and therefore approve said service level agreement. So, Mark.
Yeah, move we approve.
Okay. Jonathan's happened to second it. All those in favour, councillors? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay.
Cool. Go.
Okay, we move on to item 10C. Okay.
So as Councillor Froggatt is leaving the room, just introduce it. I think again this item shows how the council works in partnership with others. So these last three examples are examples of partnership working for the benefit of our community. We have worked with the Gattaca Allotment Society for many years with good working relationship. However, doesn't appear to be any formal agreement in place. I know we're joined by Ian Garland online, who is involved in the society, and he asked me, can I have a copy? And I looked through the archives, and it doesn't seem that there is a formal agreement in place, which is why I think our involvement over the years has varied from being extremely hands-off and not involved, and that leading to some problems, and being hands-on and then that leading to some issues as well. So I think the learning is that there's no right answers with allotments. I think it's as controversial as doing anything with Central Car Park. But I think what I would say is that both organisations recognise there's a need to be clear on roles and responsibilities, and that is why the draft agreement has been presented and suggested. It is based on the National Allotment Association model. It's not quite right, and I think the Allotment Society and the Council aren't happy with that document. It suggests a whole lease agreement, which is not what either party want. But what I would say is that any comments would be great, but we do need to meet with the association, with the society, and it would be useful if members would like to be part of that. I would think if anybody's got interest in allotments and the agreements, it would be useful. This item will need to come back once refined, and it might take a couple of goes to get it right.
I would be more than happy to, having spent some time with them.
Okay, that's excellent, thank you.
Councillors, thoughts? Mark?
Trying to formulate my thoughts first. Happy to support the meeting with the Allotment Association, with a view to getting a group together. One of the thoughts I do have is that we don't just have one set of allotments in Oswestry. I believe there's another set in Firgrove. What I would be cautious about is if we set up this kind of thing for one group, shouldn't we be looking at a more generalised agreement to deal with any of the allotments we have in Oswestry? Also, I do believe that if a certain number of people ask for allotments, that we are legally obliged to produce them. So potentially, as time goes forward, it may not just be two groups. It's unlikely, but it's still something that needs to be thought about.
Yeah, that's really useful feedback. There are, for whatever reason, the council did adopt a parcel of land in Firgrove where there are four somebody's back garden, which is a particular complexity. There isn't association, so there's no we deal with them, and they're fairly self-sufficient. If I'm honest, I think the Gattaca Allotment Society, there's 40 odd plots there. I got it right. Was there more? Plus. So I think it's a bigger setup. But I think you're right. Whoever we're working with, we need to be clear on roles and responsibilities and procedures. So this will be the basis for perhaps how we work in the future.
Jonathan?
To be honest, Councillor Owen mentioned what I was going to mention, that in accordance with the 1908 Act, we are indeed the allotment authority, so we'd need to bear that in mind for if we get any requests from other parcels of land in the future.
So it's long been the council's ambition to have more allotment land, and has sought any opportunities to do so, but the last parcel of land that we looked at was on sale for £400,000. So there's limited land in the town. We have looked at outside our boundaries. I would say you are fulfilling your statutory obligation in that you do provide allotments. The problem is, and I think, what's the waiting list, Henry? Is a few on there? 76 on the waiting list, is that there isn't enough land to provide. But I think it's actually on it certainly was on our place plan.
Wendy?
Yeah, it was just you were inviting members to be part of the meeting. I assume that the ones who are absent will have the opportunity after the meeting to show an interest if they did want to be part of that. You don't need names tonight specifically.
I'm happy to take if you want to suggest any councillors, or any councillors want to come forward, that'd be ace.
Well, it's my ward, so I want to be involved.
Dave?
If there's 76 on the waiting list, the actual threshold for people to demand allotments is a lot lower than that. It's not very many at all. So if you've had problems finding the right land that's affordable, if people demand it, then that's going to really put the council in a bind trying to find something in short order, isn't it?
So we do provide. So this, so it's the additional is that there's not enough capacity, and if there's any answer, I'm more than happy to hear it. I say we've tried to identify land. Yeah.
Jonathan.
So firstly, I believe the threshold is 10, and secondly, I do know of some Maserfield Ward residents who are also tenants of the allotments, so I would like to be involved as well.
Probably got enough now, if I'm honest, with 3, if that's okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Dave.
Quickly, if you do get sites coming forward for development, then it might be an opportunity to try and blag some space from a developer as part of their developer contribution.
Well, I'm going to say this rather controversially, and I might need to apologise afterwards, but we did ask for land at the leisure centre to be considered as allotment land, and that was turned down.
James, you look like you're trying to speak, but thinking about it now. Yes.
It was just a matter of, while we're already discussing land transfers with Shropshire, if there's bits of land that we could have a business case that we would be able to use for the community, we should approach Shropshire with that.
So, councillors, this evening we were asked to just kind of cast our eye over this. We're veering away from that one. So I think we have got some names of people that are happy to engage in discussions. We've got acknowledgement that we need to, and that this isn't the final thing, but this is something for discussion. So I think we have probably exhausted that discussion, and we're just being asked to consider.
Good chairmanship.
Thanks very much. Would you like to invite Mr. Froggatt back in?
Are you voting? Are you voting?
It doesn't say we need to, it just says we have to consider.
Yeah.
Are we happy to consider, councillors? All those in favour? Thank you very much. Okay. We've done swapsies, haven't we? Yeah, okay, fab. We then move on to item D, which is just an update on things that we've talked about on multiple occasions around the redevelopment of Oswestry Team Tennis Clubhouse. Aaron?
Yeah, the only reason to bring it forward is just as a reminder, there is a change of approach. So they were going to put a modular building on their porter cabin, but realised that it was too expensive and too difficult to do, so they're going to build a modular building in there. It's going through planning, but we've gone through renovating the garage, modular building, porter cabin to a modular building. So, yeah, it's prudent that I bring it forward. These are the general terms of the lease. It's been through council. Just need to highlight that you are acting as Caglass Charity as well, as trustees. So just gives me just a refresh of the delegated powers to get it sorted.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to move from the chair. I move that we accept, give you delegated powers, congratulate them, etc. All those in favour, councillors? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Henry.
Chair, can the clerk remind me when this went through planning? It was fairly recent, wasn't it?
So it is in the system. It's currently in the system for a variation on the previous planning application. So
no, we will wait. You can sit there. No? Okay, moving on then, councillors, through to the acceptable use of electronic services policy discussed during the HR panel and disciplinary committee especially pertinent when we look at hybrid ways of working for individuals and flexible working spaces moving forward. Aaron?
So yeah, perhaps, Madam Mayor, recommend you look at A, B and C. So that those three policies have been through the HR and Disciplinary Council Committee. They haven't changed since previously implemented. We just need to confirm a review. So if you're happy to take the three.
So should we, unless anybody has anything to suggest otherwise, should we look at it on block of A, B and C? Mark?
Reminded me about something, so sorry. The flexible working and home working policy. I was just going to ask the red text that was in, where you're recording hours for people working at home. I'm just wondering, is it possible that we don't rely on the request from the line manager, that the hours should come in normally and is just stored? Otherwise, you might get into a situation, I don't know what the HR implication is, but it's a matter of, if you have to request the hours, surely it's better to have it actually on the system for reference?
Yeah, we operate, so very few colleagues work from home. Most people work from the office. It is, you know, based a lot on trust. As indicated in the minutes of the HR and Disciplinary Committee, we do need to put processes in place, and one of these will be a central place of recording timesheets or what have you. So, and it's currently not the case.
James?
Sorry, I'm on the panel that actually reviewed this, but the one thing I noticed was it just says doesn't distribute statements of a political nature when talking about if I was a council would be a political nature, so maybe changing it to partisan political. As you sending an email about something would be classed as a political nature. And
I'm happy with the wording, but let me have a look. Which one was it, James? Just from. I think you got Duncan wants to speak out.
Duncan?
I think it's important to keep the wording at political. It's not just party political. It could be political comments outside of party alignment. And it's important that our staff and the clerk are rigorously non-political in their communication and their use of council equipment.
I think the view is generally encourage colleagues to stay away from anything political, especially when they can be identified as an employee. So I suppose it could be campaigning against the war in Iran, for example. You could say that's not partisan politics, but it certainly is politics. For example, that's the reason why it's general. But I do take I understand the point that you're making.
I think it's worth being generic about that aspect.
Are you okay with those three?
So we've got those three policies. Are people comfortable with taking them on block? Any further comments? No? Okay, so we are taking A, B and C on block. That's acceptable use of electronic services, flexible working and data protection. I'm going to move from the chair that we accept those. Do I have a seconder? Jonathan. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to D then, flag flying policy.
So the flag flying policy just brings up to date our existing policy to reflect the decision you made at the last council. I think it was it last council, council before, about flying the two flags alongside each other and not having a second flagpole. It's been highlighted, I don't know if members want to raise this, that it's not explicitly clear. So on page 3, when it talks about other flag flying occasions, it does suggest that the language is a little bit ambiguous. So I do need to add a couple of words at the end of it. So where it says, Oswald Street Town Council will fly the following flags on their respective dates unless an occasion arises when the Union flag has to be flown on its own. So there are occasions where we take the pride flag down to fly the Union Jack. So that clarifies that. That is how we do it, but the policy just codifies it.
Councillors, with that amendment, Jonathan?
Can I also ask that, with regards to the section where a flag is flown at half-mast, if it happens to coincide with a day when another flag is flown beneath the Union flag, that flag will be removed for the day and it'll just be the Union flag that flies at half-mast, as if it's just an ordinary day?
I think that's what I think that's what that change enables, Jonathan. So yeah, and absolutely is how we do it. So yeah, thank you for bringing that.
Okay, so again, we are asked to consider and note the flag flying policy. Mark?
No, I read this previously, and I can't remember where I've seen it in here. Since we are so close to Wales, we have St George's England flag included. Would it not be prudent to include the other patron saints of the other sections of the UK? I'm conscious that obviously the border's 3 miles away.
So just to try and not kill the debate, because as a proud Welshman, I'd love to have the Welsh flag up here all the time. However, if you want to bring that idea forward, you'll have to do it through a notice of motion, so that there's advance notice that that's been discussed, if that's okay. So when it says changes to that policy, it picks it up. But yeah.
We do recognise the birthday of the Prince of Wales with the Union flag, though. So, while also Welsh and would love a dragon.
Don't get me going on that one. Anyway, shall we move on?
Yes. Councillors, all those in favour of the flag flying policy? Unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Close call there. Right. Item 12.
So this item's just for noting, and it's an annual update from the Ministry of Housing, Communities, Local Government. It just confirms what's known as Section 137 powers and the figure that you can spend against. So yeah, it's referred to as power of last resort for local councils, because you use it when you haven't got anything else that you can use.
Duncan?
My nerdish interest, have we ever used this power? How much did we spend in the last year on it?
So we use it for grants and donations. We use it as the power for grants and donations, although we can use the power of general competency so as well. But yeah, Section 137 we use for grants and donations.
The next question is, how much is it in total? And give us the amount per electorate.
So I don't know how many electors we have. I have done the calculation in the past.
We are about 15,000.
No, not electors. No. But anyway, I think it covers it.
David?
Anyway.
Okay.
Let's just note it.
Okay. Noted. You want us to vote?
No, just note it.
Perfect. Thank you. Item 13 then. SALC, Shropshire UK SPF programme and need for lobbying of government for future growth funds.
So this is just, again, a request from SALC to highlight this. There's a letter there from Chris Mellings, who's the Chief Officer. It just gives you information. I think we would say, because we're well placed, we have benefited from UK SPF funding. It's the only funding that has come from government from a number of years, and it does make a difference. And so the loss will be quite a big one for Shropshire. It's been used as a tool by many authorities, including Shropshire Council. So it's a shame to see it go, and you can see the good it's done. There's no real action you could take. The only option you could do is write a letter in support, but I'm not an advocate of writing letters in support of things.
Duncan?
But I wouldn't use the term UK Share Prosperity Fund, because every new government ends up funding for the last government and creates new funding which looks the same but has a different name. So if you want to succeed, it might be worth talking about the money rather than this particular name of the funding.
Sort of going on to that point, the reason that UK SPF came was because it was the replacement of the European Union's money, which, if you go around town, there was a lot of projects that used that. going around Shropshire, a lot of projects were trying to be funded by UK SBF, and that money is now being replaced in a very urban-centric grant, as explained here, and it's very disappointing that, given this was a sort of leave voting area, that we're being shafted by the government and not being allowed to have that growth that urban areas that voted the other way did.
Okay. So we are simply being asked to note the email from SALC with regards to this. So I think we have noted and therefore can move on. To item 14, report from the Town Clerk on the risk register.
So this was reviewed by the Audit and Performance and Procurement Panel, been a review and a few risks updated as set out. So I hope you find me putting it out on the agenda more useful than me just hiding it in the spreadsheet. I'm happier with the latter, but I think this is a transparent way of telling you what we've done. I think there's some key considerations, and it's right that we reflect the risks associated with these. So regarding organisational capacity, which we're managing, but it is a risk. Reflect the transfer services, again, because we're having to adapt and invest and deliver projects, there is a risk. And it's right that you identify those risks, because if you don't, you're just plodding on oblivious to things that might go wrong. And again, health and safety risk has been updated, and yeah, I think it's a fair reflection of our strategic risks and how we're managing them.
Councillors? I think my only comment would be it feels like we are constantly actively trying to do things to support our risk register, to mitigate some of those risks, whether it be recruitment of people, whether it be looking at the spread of jobs and responsibilities, whether it be being honest about what we can and can't do as a council. We cannot do absolutely everything, and I would encourage the clerk to continue being open and honest about what projects we can and cannot do, and therefore actively trying to prioritise. So, any other further comments, councillors? Okay, we are just being asked to consider the risk register, which I think we have done.
Yeah, could I ask you to adopt it?
Yes. Therefore, James. Sorry, James.
This is more of a technical point of some of the items I feel are hazards rather than risks, like losing the NABLA contract is something that can lead to us losing income rather than it necessarily being a risk in itself. So it's a technicality, but there's a few points on there that I noticed that were it's more of a risk, that the actual impact to the council is the sort of risk and the likelihood of it happening, whereas the actual things that could be part of that risk are things like losing the NABLA contract.
Yes. Yeah, I'm happy to find, we can fine tune it, and next time we have a review, reword things. I think it's been it was a key issue for the council over many years. So it was on the risk register when I inherited it, and it was high, and it's always remained on there. But yeah, happy for it to be merged into something else. It's not a massive issue for me. You can look at it either way, but I'll have a look with that in mind next time I come to it.
Richard.
I accept that we can call things different names, and there is a measure of how serious that is, but to some extent the colouring of the risk gives you a measure of being able to determine how serious it is. So I would sooner these things were included rather than us not including them, because we weren't sure whether they were a risk or not, but to make sure that by doing it we can adjust how serious it is by how we use the register.
Yeah, noted. Okay, we are being asked to consider and adopt, so I'm happy to adopt from the chair. If I have a second for adoption, thank you, Ruth. All those in favour? Unanimous. Fabulous. Okay, we then move on to complaints to council.
So big thank you to, so it's got my name on the report, but it's a big thank you to Sandra, who pulls together and coordinates all the activity and complaints and make sure that we respond to them. I think what you have is a summary of the issues. I think you can see that aside from the increase in car parking charges, which was a significant issue for our community, that the rest are relatively minor and not our responsibility. But I think we've addressed them where we can and provide a very timely response. So these are just for noting, if that's okay.
Duncan.
It's not a complaint, but handling of FOIs, which has been a bit of an issue for Shropshire Council recently, I thought it would be good at some stage to have a report to Council or perhaps to the Audit Committee on our performance in responding to FOI requests, just to make sure there's no issues for the Council.
Yeah, I think more than happy to pull a report together, either for perhaps a couple of years worth of data. Would it be okay if that went to the audit panel?
I suspect it's a sharp increase.
What I would say, which I would, is that we hit all the targets. Yeah.
Okay, so we are being asked to consider the report, note it.
Let's note it.
Note it.
Because you're taking it. No, you're taking it as feedback, aren't you? So you're noting it. So yeah.
Yep, we are noting those complaints and the handling thereof, and the areas of concern for people. Duncan.
So, always we focus on complaints. Do we actually record positive comments about the council, and do we have a system for counting that as well, rather than learning from successes as well as failures?
So we do get some. We get plenty. Predominantly, we do record them, and what we do. Well, we don't. Do we record them properly? Yeah. Yeah. So, possibly we could do a little bit more to record compliments. What we do is make sure, pass them on to you when we get them, and absolutely pass them on to the members of staff concerned. So we do that. They're predominantly Cowglass Park, if I'm honest, and also the service from a couple of our parking wardens as well. Yeah, but yeah, I think it's an important point.
Ask going forward, do you look at whether we can have a system that looks at comments, both positive and negative? Yeah. And I don't think they're not equivalent, but I just think it's useful to also look at positive comments.
Comments and concerns.
Yeah, absolutely happy to do that. Yeah.
Fabulous. Yep. Good point. Okay. Item C, the provision of civic regalia for the past mayor and past mayoress.
So there's always one item on the agenda which causes a little bit of a debate, doesn't it? But I thought it useful for me to explain how this works and the reason for bringing it forward. And I say the reason for bringing it forward is purely down to the cost of gold, and the cost. So I have to get your approval to be doing this. So after the mayor making ceremony, which happens in May, the retired mayor is given a past mayor's pendant. So to recognise the service that they have given, and they do have an ongoing civic life. So as a past mayor, Councillor Kerr, I think you've got one when you attend Remembrance Sunday, wear it, and it shows the service that you've given as a councillor and as a mayor. At the same time, the consort is given a brooch to mark their year. So this has been custom and practice for many, many years, and I think recognises the time given by that individual in support of the mayor. So I think it's also important to recognise that the consorts do give a lot of time. As I said, the agenda item has only been brought forward due to the cost of gold. What I would say is that there's adequate budget. So there's £1,000 in the 25-26 budget, £3,000 in the 26-27 budget, and an underspend in the civic awards budget to fund these brooches. So it has been custom and practice, so there is enough money to do it. It's right I ask you, especially as a new council, for your view on it. I think it would be a shame to change a custom and practice, but it is your decision whether you consider it or not.
James.
What I just want to make was, is 3 the sort of cheapest multiple that you could get? If you ordered 4 or 5, would the net per item go down further, or?
Sandra's giving me up. Sandra?
I just want to say I think it's very important that the past mayoress is given a recommendation sort of on the, or the consort for the time they have spent supporting the mayor and mayoress during the year. And I think it would be a shame not to continue that tradition.
Me too. We'll keep it short. But it's a matter I think it is important. People do look back on their time supporting the mayor, and having a brooch or an equivalent, whether it be a pendant, small pendant or brooch, I think is actually quite important.
Jonathan?
Jonathan, then Richard.
I think we should continue with it as well, because the consort is not just a colleague. They're almost the closest thing you've got to a personal advisor once you're not in the Guildhall. So to discontinue this would not just be wrongdoing to past and present consorts, but to future ones in the long run as well.
Just picking up on Councillor Owen's point, if it's going to be more cost effective, for instance, to buy 5, is there an opportunity to do that? Especially bearing in mind that, if I understood the numbers right, there's certainly money going forwards in terms of the ability to cover that. So is there an opportunity to do that before we commit to 3?
Yeah, I think if you decide that you want to order 5 of each, then we can do 5 of each. So I can find the budget. So that seems like is that a motion?
Oh, well, if I need to make a motion, I'll make a motion. Yeah. It's,
You've done one.
well,
there we go.
Okay, councillors, all those in favour? I'm abstaining.
Okay. So Sandra, tomorrow.
Okay, we move on to D, item D, the annual town meeting, scheduled for the 27th of April, the Monday after my civic event.
Yes, and a very special day on the 27th of April is too. What I would say, just quickly, so the proposal is to slightly shift the focus of the meeting to align with the proposal that members came up with at the budget seminar, is to look at a community-focused annual town meeting that looks at how we support those who need the most support. So it could be called hardship, poverty, the sort of work in progress. So it seems, given the mayor at her celebration of community pinched your idea, it would seem sort of very daft to do the same thing again. It seems a good way of actually delivering what you want to deliver. So with that in mind, I have had a positive meeting with the food bank about this event, but also you'd be pleased to note that the £25,000 that this council has given to support the food bank will be used to continue their community advice service. So I think that shows a tangible difference that contribution is made, and it can be measured. So I thought you'd be pleased. And I wanted to let you know there'll be regular reports. So that's a really positive outcome. Been in discussion with Oswald Street Community Action this afternoon, and they're keen to support this work as well. At some point I'll be sharing some statistics with you about deprivation in Oswald Street, and I have to say I think it'll blow your socks off, because I think it's extremely worrying, some of the issues that have been highlighted. Particularly around child poverty and fuel poverty in the town. So I think it highlights the importance of this as a piece of work, and the need for the community to come together, partnership working. And I think Liz at the food bank called it a session about identifying there's no wrong door. So wherever you go for support, you will get it. It may mean that you're signposted elsewhere, but there isn't. There's always someone to ask for help. So that may be the way that we theme the meeting, but just wanted to bring that to you for your okay before I crack on with the arrangements.
It strikes me that there's an opportunity to provide some things like Sainsbury's have in terms of you want to bring a tin with you to put in a donation box, that's the word. Whether we provide some kind of donation points that evening or that day for people in the community and councillors to give.
If you'd like to arrange that, Madam
Yep.
Mayor, I'm more than
Happy to do that.
take your lead on that.
Thanks very much.
I've got delegation on my appraisal, which is coming up, so I thought I'd better practice.
Isn't it delegation to your colleagues? Oh well, that's fine. I think I've been just delegated or relegated. Right. Any thoughts, councillors, on the annual town meeting and that idea? Are we comfortable with that idea? Do we think it's a good idea? I think if you can think of other groups that would be good to come to that meeting, that would be useful. James.
I would say this, but registered providers have these sort of teams in place as well. So inviting those parts of the team might be useful to allow people to converse with them if they don't normally get in touch.
Duncan.
James Owen mentioned it earlier, but there is the Community Resilience Fund, which has been provided by government out to councils, and I think by then should be a bit more knowledge about what's going to happen to that, and be useful having somebody from Shropshire Council who's able to speak about that and how it's being used locally.
Yeah, it's a good mitigation tool. Yep.
So do you have any contact, my sort of networks into Shropshire Council? Philip, could you find somebody out?
Still working what is the best use of it. So some of it's going to be used for free school meals, for example, over Easter. So, but they haven't decided over the whole year what that's going to be used for yet.
Is there an officer who leads on it?
We'll find somebody.
Okay. Can I leave it with members to find somebody, because I just don't have the connections anymore.
Okay. Well, we've received the update. We're happy with it going forward. Job's a good one.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Excellent. Just in time, Henry is to my left. Report from the operations manager on the estate report. Thank you very much.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. There are 5 items on the estate report, some of which are to note, some for discussion, or all for discussion. That's up to you. The first point on it is the old schoolhouse. Now, we've had a survey done on the building. It is a grade 2 listed building. There are some repairs and maintenance work that needs doing. However, given the nature of the building and its listed status, there are processes that we're going to have to follow to go through it. So I'm proposing that we're going to bring forward a phased proposal to council. It says at the next meeting, it would be May's meeting, just to discuss and to show what work needs doing and how we propose that work to take place. The second item on the list is the Walford Davis Street. Coincidentally, they're in tonight with the performance. We've been approached by the Epfield Theatre, asking to consider to redecorate the Walford Davis Street, which they use for their interval drinks for their patrons. They have sent through a proposal already. However, as the room is used by other organisations and groups as well as the Epfield Theatre, it would probably be better to have councillors' input in terms of the palette of the room. So our members are being asked to note the request and agree for officers to progress discussions with the theatre to confirm the scope palette, and where the members also wish to include councillor input through discussions with the further report being brought back if required. Shall I keep going? Next one. Improving public safety on market and event days. In the previous estate report, I didn't mention that this would be coming. Following a photograph that was shared by a fellow officer up in Edinburgh, there are some signs called H-stop signs, which are designed to disrupt a vehicle's forward motion. It changes its trajectory from going horizontal to vertical. Now, these are used all around the UK and all around the world, really, as well. But some events closer to the UK, so Edinburgh Fringe Festival and the London Marathon, as well as local events and food and drink festivals as well. I have been in discussion with a company called CrowdGuard, who are a UK-based company who specialise in this sort of thing. And they came to Oswald Street to have a look around at the 3 sites that the Town Council either close for our own events or closed due to an SLA that we have with Shropshire Council. On market days, as well as the barriers, the border, sorry, that we have between the Guildhall and the market, we also close off Albion Hill just by the pub George here, currently with metal barriers, which on several occasions traders as they're coming on and off site do move. So with the introduction of H-stop guards, it would help increase that, improve that, but also the highlight for myself to bring this forward is the design of them and what they are able to do. A metal barrier, you can drive through a metal barrier, whereas these, instead of pointing forward, you're pointing upwards when they hit it. In the report, there are some figures in there with some options as well for council to either discuss, agree or consider. Street lighting. We have designed a new sticker. It's Appendix A on the report at the very bottom. A nice sort of in-your-face sort of colour of the yellow sticker that will be going around on all of the town council owned streetlights during the month of April. There is a QR code when scanned that will redirect the user to the town council's website page, which has the form on it. And members when they go up, members are asked to encourage residents and the public to report any street lighting issues through these means, as we are able to track them and log them through an online format as well. And the last point on the report is public toilet maintenance agreement. So at present we have an SLA for a company to manage the maintenance of our public toilets. That is set to expire at the end of this month. We have obtained a re-quote from the current contractor and have sought other quotes, with a second quotation being provided. The offering includes preventative maintenance visits, reactive timeframes from initial reporting of issue to attending sites, call-outs and exclusions. The data is there for yourselves. It's the recommendation for officers for council to pursue with company B. Although, yes, there is an increase, there is a higher price, given that there's 3 ppm visits and that they'll be on site within 24 hours rather than 72 for the other company provided. I think you're getting more for your money. And I'll shut up there.
Thank you very much, Henry. There's a lot of information. So let's deal with one at a time, councillors. We have got the potential redecoration of the Wilfred Owen Suite, Wilfred Davis Suite. The offer from the Appfields to suggest some redecoration, but councillors' thoughts, James?
Is it in particular need of redecoration, or is it visual?
The whole building is in need of a bit of a renovation, to be fair. So it was all done at the same time. So it's a similar sort of condition to this. Yeah, I think the issue for us is that the theatre colours are a little bit dark, and it needs to reflect the fact that it's the council's room. So I think that's important. I think all we're asking, I suppose, is, do you want us to have a conversation or not? Is that, I think it's a long and short of it, isn't it?
Mark?
Yeah, I'm happy for a conversation, but as the town clerk has said, it really needs the stamp of the town council for the whole building. I'm just wondering if it's worthwhile considering a phased approach to the redecoration over a number of years. But I think we need to actually reflect that it's a council building and a council rooms. I understand that they may want the actual room itself to be nice for their patrons, but handing it over lock, stock and barrel, I would prefer the conversation. Let's say it, put it that way, if you don't mind.
So we're looking for two councillors or a councillor to come and join us as part of the meeting, because otherwise you're having Henry and I decide on colour schemes, and I'm not sure what you're like, Henry. I'm just I can't be left alone with that.
I'm happy to join that discussion.
No, we don't have to.
I think it's just a scoping exercise rather than an agreement.
So we'll settle for that, Councillor Radford and Councillor James Owen to join join us at a meeting with the outfield.
Okay, so then we moved on to the bollards slash barriers, and we have a decision as to whether to hire or to purchase. The concept being potentially we have 3 sites that we'd need, so I'm guessing we're looking at 15,000.
So can I make a recommendation on this? So just Henry's quite rightly identified all the areas where there are vulnerable. 2 of them are the responsibility of Shropshire Council, and perhaps we need to have a conversation with them and highlight to them the concerns, which is what you say in your report. So I'm just wondering in this instance whether we go for 2 and purchase 2. We do need to improve safety, and it gives us then a chance to see what they're like, see how deployable they are, and learn from that. And apologies, I had to pop out whether you said this, but the biggest risk we're facing, and it's on the counter-terrorism profile, is a vehicle driving through a crowd. So when you've got some big events, I think we need to start taking this stuff a little bit seriously.
Mark?
A question and then a point. If we were to have these barriers in situ, where would they normally be stored, and do we have the storage space necessary to put them somewhere safe? That's the first thing. The second thing is, looking at the prices, I think the hiring I think would be out of the window because it's too expensive. You might as well, after 2 years, have bought them than actually hire them. So if we are looking to actually get these, I would suggest purchase rather than hiring.
They will be stored with the barriers that we have already in storage. There are some of our barriers currently in situ of the locations, but we do have another 26 hiding away, so they'll be stored with them as well.
And there's sufficient room, presumably?
Yes, there is.
Would we allow non-council people to use them? So when we have events that enter the Bailey Head, for example, that are run by people other than Oswestry Town Council, where it is appropriate to manage crowds and traffic, where do we stand on that? And I take you back to the concept of the lantern parade, where at the last minute there was kind of usage of the barriers, because there was cars coming down here.
So,
I think we need to be clear on that one, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to deploy them to support public safety. So if there's a road closure in place, so that's the first thing, was that road actually closed? So if it's a road closure order in place, then we can put a barrier in, and it just, and we can, if we get 2, we can then have a look at how effective they are. There is an opportunity to stick them in the entrance of the park as well, and places like that, isn't it? When we've got big events. So.
This is a silly question, I apologise. Presumably they're easy enough to move for the emergency vehicles to get through.
Yes, they are, yeah.
Okay, so this is being suggested that we purchase 2, which I cannot see a reason not to, so I'm going to, from the chair, suggest that we purchase 2 as a starting point, and we can always look at purchasing more. So do I have a seconder for that, councillors? Jonathan, thank you very much. All those in favour, councillors? Unanimous? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Therefore, we move on to the other recommendation, which is the appointment of the future maintenance of the council public toilets. And I think your recommendation from you, Henry, was Company B. Have you got any thoughts, questions about Company B or other things, Wendy?
No, I just think it's a no-brainer. If you've got a company that will deal with block toilets in a public toilet, yeah, Company B.
Okay. I think my only thought about Company B was that it's only the first 3 that are free. After that, they will be charged. But then it's a balance, isn't it, between what they will therefore deal with. So, yeah.
So I'll say it because Henry. So there are performance issues based on the recommendation as well. so we have experience. So the recommendation of using company B is based on our experience. I'm not going to say of who, but it's based on our experience. So I think whilst we've given you the choice on this, it's really, you really do need to just support the recommendation.
That's fine then. I'm happy to move from the chair that we go with recommendation B, seconded by Wendy. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. And then we are just noting the update on the old schoolhouse and then separately the street lights issue.
I just raise something on the street lighting issue. It talks about having a QR code, and having been burnt myself on QR codes in public places, you'll know that there's a scam where people will place them or put stickers over them with a different QR code, and then when you log onto that QR code, it takes details from you, which you think. So I'm just wondering, is it appropriate for us to be using QR codes in public places? Because I think there's quite a bit of guidance out there now which is suggesting that isn't really appropriate. It's fine in a restaurant or some private place, but in a public place it's very vulnerable to people putting stickers over them, and I wouldn't have to take all our QR codes back off the lights we've just put on, because that becomes a problem. And I suppose I also think, I don't know if people actually need QR codes. They need to know how to report it. They could find it on Google, I'm sure. I prefer not to take the risk, I'll be perfectly honest.
Having used QR codes on websites and all sorts of things is not a massive uptake. When you look at the traffic, it's not as widely used as you think, but you can get a QR code that has the logo in the middle. But again, if they're doing stickers, they can fake the logo and all the rest of it. Because you can go on a website and generate a QR code really easy. So yeah, if the URL that you've got above it is short enough for the streetlights bit, so you can do a redirect so it goes straight to the page and gets the length for the URL really short, then that might be a better option.
Mark?
To be honest, I think just a direction to the council website and providing there's something reasonably easy to see on the website to take you to it in the menu items, that should be sufficient.
Jonathan?
Thank you. This also takes me back to earlier on that QR codes, they are the new piece of technology at the moment, but we have a lot of people that they are online, but they might not have the devices that scan QR codes, and you might have some that still want to report things the traditional method through email or a phone call or just writing a letter. So as long as we make sure that there are a multitude of options of reporting things still, and not just QR codes, then we are covering all eventualities.
Dave?
It is on. It has got the phone number and the email address on this.
So
Yep.
I think we've heard the feedback.
Yep.
I think we just adapt what we've got, Henry, and don't have a QR code on there. So we appreciate it.
I think we can mitigate it by pinning something on the town council's website, which makes it slightly more bold to say, reporting lampposts here.
But there may have to be a little bit of jiggery-pokery with the signs, but I'm sure we can do that, can't we? Yeah. So yeah, thank you for the feedback. I think we'll take that.
Okay, so we are agreeing we're noting updates about Old Schoolhouse, and we're agreeing this with some alterations. So let's vote anyway, councillors, why not? All those in favour? Thank you very much. And report from the Market and Events Officer and Finance Manager. So we've got a double report.
Yes, so the idea of putting them both together is to show that to highlight the performance, but also to highlight the activity that's taking place. So I think the statistics, there's not much change with the statistics. The outdoor market is particularly dependent on weather. So if anybody's been in town today, I don't know if anybody's been through town, but it's been vibrant. There's lots of people around. All the car parks are full.
Oh, it was.
And the market, there was a reasonable market. So, I think clearly the more people we have, the more market traders will attract. So there's a bit of a plan in there from David in terms of what we're doing and a bit of an update. I think members will be pleased to note that we are hosting a regional final of the youth market in Oswestry for the first time ever. So that's a major achievement. I suppose the other key issue is the free events and the Youth Music Festival, which has just been completed successfully.
Yes, very successful.
Again, so I think it just goes to show there's a lot of stuff going on. Always opportunities to improve. We are doing a markets health check, so I'll just note in that. So that's when an independent market manager, so in this case a gentleman called Andy Warden manages the markets at Warrington, who will come to Oswestry and give us a view of our market, produce a report which you will see. What I've then asked for the markets officer to do is base a plan based on that and any feedback to make sure that we're addressing the issues. Key issues are location of stalls, Bailey Head or down the street, debate, and I think there's a long debate on that one, and not one for tonight. But there'll be those sorts of issues that will be brought forward to you at a later date.
Thank you. I think going back to the regional youth competition, I think when we looked at this last year, we actually had 3 Oswestry traders that were put forward for the regional finals, and one of our Oswestry traders, the regional finals were at Mould, and I think one of our regional finals, who was doing his own artwork on clothing, he actually won. So it would be really good to bring that youth market to Oswestry as a regional event that will provide a bit of publicity as well. And I think anybody that's went to the final and experienced any of the amazing talent of young people throughout last week will probably join me in congratulating everybody involved in the Youth Music Festival. That was an absolute stonking success. So I think thanks go to Richard for chairing the committee and for everybody that joined that, and also the organisers and the volunteers, etc. So that cannot be underestimated. We had people from as far as Norway coming to actually yeah, thank you, coming to perform, so brilliant. We are asked to note the report from both. There's no recommendations, so councillors happy to note the reports. Fab, okay. Before I completely lose my voice. We have got a report from the Project Development Officer around the Breathing New Life into Empty Properties grant scheme.
So this is a monitoring report to show how we're doing, an assessment against the scheme. It highlights what you've done, what you've approved, yeah, gives you some feedback. I suppose it's an opportunity for you to give us feedback before we bring forward the plans for 25, for 26, 27. I say there's some feedback in there. What we aim for is a fairly simple process that is not too onerous, although still maintains a level of due diligence, which I think we've got the balance right. Clearly demand is less than it was, and that's because there's positive movement in Oswestry in terms of the number of empty shops. You know, Holland and Barrett come into Oswestry, taking over the old Barclays Bank, the restaurants on B-Wise. So I think the work that this council has done over many years now to support redeveloping empty shops is paying off. So, you know, thank you and congratulations to you on that. If there's any feedback, happy to take it. You have to remember this is funded through capital, so it can only be capital expenditure, and repairs and maintenance, although there is a demand for it, is not capital expenditure.
Jonathan.
Just to say a big thank you to Aaron and the team for pulling all this together and what they've done so far.
I think my only comment would be much like our grant scheme. I think there's benefit in just highlighting it to people ongoing. I've had numerous conversations in the last couple of months with people around their shop fronts, and it's just re-highlighting as councillors and anybody that we talk to, do you know that we've got this? Have a look at it. It's really worth thinking about.
Just a thought, as with when we do our normal grants and donations, you bring people in to consider it. Would you like to follow that same approach if we have businesses?
Yes.
We'll have a think. Don't need a decision. I just try and read the room. Duncan.
Under that, I don't want to make the scheme too onerous. It seems to work as it is, and I think with grants and donations, it's a sort of, you can hear if the people are giving the grants. I think the business, it's a bit more difficult, and I'm not sure, if I'm honest. I'm not convinced that's the way to go. But there are.
Okay, happy to note that one.
So we're noting that one.
Yeah.
We move on to sundry creditors, our regular slot.
The only thing I'll highlight on this, and you see the amount of money that's going through Bestford Mansion, and so how many transactions that are there. Just reassure you, we are very good at getting the money in as well. I just managing the cash flow with that project has been one of my biggest concerns, and it's a credit to the team that there's a little gap between the money going out and the money coming in, because when it comes to the big part of the project, we're going to be talking multi-million-pound transactions. So managing the money is a key one. So credit to the colleagues.
On a positive note, it's always good to see the grants and the monies that we have given out to people, just as a reminder of the good work that we do. And some of those would only be doing it because some of us have reached out to them and said, have you thought about this? So that's really key and important. Cool. So we are being asked to adopt the below statement of accounts approved for payment by nominated members. I'm happy to move from the chair that we adopt this. Do I have a second of these? Jonathan, all those in favour? Thank you very much.
So just an additional note, because the question has been raised about the process for doing this. We are reviewing our management procedures to make sure that the appropriate checks are in place, and we'll provide the feedback at a later date. Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay. To resolve the exclusion of public and press. All those in favour? Thank you.